everybody, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today we're going to be sharing with you a very special conversation between Ping and Peter. Now, Peter is an experienced real estate investor. He's a member of our community, and he's got a lot to share from the perspective of a passive real estate investor. And his story here is really going to highlight that being a passive real estate investor does not come with its own challenges, and it doesn't come with its own risks and things that you need to overcome. When many of us consider getting into real estate, we often think passive is the way to go. We leverage other people's expertise and we make partnerships that avoid us having to deal with certain problems. But in this conversation, we're going to learn about different challenges that you may have to face from both the passive perspective, but also the active as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. There's tons of knowledge and perspective to be had.
Can we quickly talk about what you were doing before, right? Let's say your very first project. How did you start looking into real estate? And when did you start looking into the partnership with other people?
Right. No, I've always been interested in real estate. What happened was my son, when he started going to university, he went into residence for first year. Mm-hmm. The second year, he and his newly found friends wanted to move out of residence and rent a house. That's when I thought, well, great, I'll go buy the house and you guys can rent from me, thinking that, it'll be a cash cow. And I partnered up with my best man from my wedding. We were feverishly working, looking for houses in the Guelph area, because that was the University of Guelph area.
When was that again?
That would have been 2011. And because he was in residence, I kept going to Guelph and, getting familiar with the town and so forth. And then when it came to looking for a rental home, I saw many different student rentals where houses were cut up into different rooms. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not cutting up a house. So the house had to be, laid out in such a way that you'd have enough rooms. What I didn't realize was I shouldn't have settled for a 4-bedroom house. I should have settled for a 6 and more, right? But who knew? I was just flying on the seat of my pants there. And I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Got a real estate agent, you get a mortgage, and you get kids. That was my simplistic form.
Yeah.
So anyways, that worked out very well till about, for about 5 years. I had the house. We those guys moved out. We had girls move in. You know what? Girls are just as bad as guys in the student rental. They're not the angels that us guys think they are. No.
Yeah. Sometimes they can be messier, actually.
Oh boy, messier. And yeah, so basically, these are kids that have moved out of their parents' house yet. Yeah. And their first time on their own. So it's a learning experience. I get that. So I had to deal with the parents. I had to deal with the students. I had to deal with the condo, because it was a part of a condo corporate. These were townhouses, right? The parties, the damage. I tell you, that was a steep learning curve.
When you say you did already, was appreciation or even the cash flow was okay?
The cash flow was okay, right? But the appreciation was better. I mean, we really came out ahead when we sold that house. But a few years later, if we knew what interest rates were going to do and, investors were looking for, we could have held on to that for a little bit longer. And then we could have bought a Mercedes after this. I mean, but it's okay. Everything went well. I mean, everything worked out quite well.
You can never time the market, right? Because what happens if you happen to hit 2017? There's a foreign tax regulation that just got announced, right? So that's when the dip really happens, right? So if you wait until 2017, you're like, you went up, and then boom, it went down.
That's right. There's so many times do I hear from potential investors or people interested in real estate, they're timing the market. Oh, I'm going to wait for this to happen or for that to happen, the government to change, whatever. What you should have done, if it wasn't 20 years ago, yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? So then do it today, get on the ball today and start looking for properties of your interest and get a coach or mentor that'll help you out. 100%. Or if you have an uncle that's already doing this, bonus. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Family members who's doing it so that you can learn directly from them. Yeah. Question for you. You invest a lot of things into other people's project, right? As a passive partner, passive investor. What made you make that decision? Because your student rental obviously went pretty well in terms of cash flow and the appreciation.
Yeah.
How did you make that decision to invest in other people's?
Well, I've been part of real estate clubs. I've gone through courses, so I know what is out there, the different strategies and so forth. Yeah, so for passive investing, I say, well, that's a great idea because I have these funds which I had in RSPs, right? And I had some excess funds that go out and buy other houses. But then when I learned of other investors buying different properties for different strategies, and they're looking for funding, and the interest rates were good. What I had done was, I know better now, but back then I didn't do my due diligence, what I should have done back then, what I know now. So I invested in a few projects, which some were good to okay, and then others a total disaster. Yeah. And I've used my RSP, for example, and even that part of the RSP is still being used. That should be paid back next year. The current term should finish next year. So I get that money back. And you have to go through Olympia Trust to do. I used Olympia Trust because that was the firm at the time, the recommended firm to use. Now Olympia Trust somehow, I don't know, you can tell me whether it's right or wrong, lost their shine, and now it's the Great Canadian Trust, something like that. Do you know that name? The other?
No, I also use Olympia Trust too.
Yeah, somehow I'm hearing different things that Olympia Trust changed a few things. Yeah, so Olympia, in my view, Olympia Trust is still good. And so, going through them, having a lawyer and make sure that everything's set up properly, we're good. But even the borrower, I mean, you really have to be on top of Olympia Trust because you got to watch your account there to ensure that what was promised in the contract, that the interest does come into your account when it was supposed to. So there was an incident last year where I just happened to, I'm not on Olympia Trust every day. I'm looking at it every 6 months. I thought it's supposed to be passive. All right. Sometimes I'll even forget about it. So I look at it and say, oh, the interest had not been paid. So I had to go between Olympia Trust and the borrower, to get the funds put back in. And so that's settled. But wow, you got to keep an eye on this.
So as soon as the borrower stop paying the interest over, that's when you need to pay attention, because a lot of times as a passive investor, you don't even need to think about how the project is going, right? You get updates, maybe quarterly updates once in a while.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So the situation that you were in was because the borrower didn't actually pay the interest.
That's right. So what happened was when he didn't pay the interest, Olympia did send me an email and say, this, and there was also charged an NSF fee, right, for that.
Right. So
then I had to go back and forth with the borrower and see whether we can arrange, when you're going to put this money in. So that it all worked out, but it did take some time and a lot of back and forth where you could use that time in your real estate business to do something else. But there's always these, type of, headaches that way.
Okay. So in what year did you start investing in other people's projects?
First year probably would have been around 2015.
2015. Okay. Yeah. So that was before you exit your student rental asset.
Yes. Yeah. So the student rental had not been sold yet, right? But I still had funds. Mind you, I had real estate was only like a side hustle. Yeah. It was only something on the side, whereas my other business, which is in exports, I spent a lot of time on that, right? With travel and whatever you do. It's not a 9 to 5, like it's a 7 days a week. Whenever you're awake, that's when business happens, right? Because
life of entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. And the thing is, my father was an entrepreneur. I understood, the late hours, the early mornings, the weekends that you need to do things. I understood that, so I was part of that lifestyle. So it didn't faze me that, people say, oh, so you're working on Saturday? Yes. Oh, you're in the office on Sunday? Yes. Right. So for me, it's normal, but I guess from other people's perspective, it's like unusual. I get that. I get that.
But here's the thing, though. I do also feel like you made the right move. Running a business, right? Focusing 100% of your energy and focus on the things that's generating you income
Oh,
or
yeah.
has a higher potential for the business income, and then you allocate the extra savings that you may not necessarily recycle back to your business into real estate.
Yes.
The things that you're doing is that you don't want your focus to be shifted to your side hustle, so you allocate those funds into other people's project.
Exactly. So like Mr. Wonderful said, right? Every dollar is like a soldier, right? You want to put those soldiers into battle that will win that battle, basically. So yeah, so I follow that, and you need to have some liquid funds. Definitely, you need to have some liquid funds so that some emergency comes up, some health issue, whatever. That you have access to funds, right?
Sure.
So some people may not have liquid, but they do have a HELOC or some kind of line of credit, which works. Even credit cards work. Borrowing from a credit card is not taboo. It's a necessity for entrepreneurs, especially in real estate.
Yes.
So don't let that 29% scare you. It's not going to be, you're not going to use it all year, right? So you might need it for a month or two.
Yeah, use it as a tool.
Yeah, it's funds that are, there for you to use. Okay. And it's great to have many credit cards, just in case you need to pull from a few, just to, put money down on a house or down payment, whatever, deposit of anything.
Okay. So Peter, since 2014, you started investing as a passive investor, and that has been working out for you very well in the past few years. What changed though? Because you and I, we had a conversation before jumping on this podcast, and you were saying that there was a certain situation that you weren't expecting back then, but now currently it's happening. Can you talk about this?
Right. Yeah. So I've been, lending funds passively to, people at that time that I knew, good reputation. They're real estate entrepreneurs. They know what they're doing. I know what their portfolio is all about. So I had great confidence. So I had, lent money to them. So from that point on, in 2016, right, I had a stroke. So that's what you're referring to, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I had a stroke. My focus for my business, when I was in exports, where I was very active. I mean, I'm a very energetic type of guy. So I was always on a plane. I'm flying overseas. I'm flying around the country, into the States, into South America, wherever I go, into Europe. And like everything sort of like came down within a very short period of time. So I decided, in the hospital, okay, I got to focus more on the real estate. And even though I had funds lent out, as passively, my investments in my own properties, right, had suffered too. And fortunately, I had property managers that took care of a few things, but I couldn't be on top of things the way I would normally be.
Right.
So so you really need a good team, a really good team, behind you.
Okay, so ever since 2016, that's also the same year that you sold student rental, right?
Yeah, it was around 15, 16, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay.
All that's a blur, right? I mean, that's stuff in the past. These things happen, but nail me down for a date, I'm gonna have to go to my books to actually give you the exact date.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So around that time, that's when you realize that, okay, because the incidents, or sometimes I call that the life events, right, took place. Yeah. And you decided that, okay, I do need to take a step back and only focus on just being a passive investors.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and because of the blindness, I lost my driver's license. I forgot to mention that. Right. Now, me, I'm a car guy, right? Yeah. I love cars, sports cars, muscle cars, exotic cars. I even have an Instagram account all on cars. And when you tell a doctor tells you that, you gotta forfeit your driver's license. You, as a car guy, I can't drive anymore. Are you kidding me? Yes. I love driving because the car was my classroom. The cars that I had CDs, so I would put always CD. I listen to something, Sure, occasionally I'll listen to music, once in a while, but the radio sucks. I don't even listen to radio, so I put my own music in. But anyhow, to listen to, whether it be, some class, some instruction on real estate, mindset, whatever the case might be, that was my classroom. It was a concert hall in there. This car was fantastic. When I was doing real estate, if there was a property or something I had to look at, I could just, because I don't work for anybody, I work for myself. Like you could just jump in the car if, anytime in the day, if you don't have anything else planned, then you just go see a property, go see an investor, go see a lender, whatever the case might be. Mm-hmm. That all finished. That finished. So when I was told I didn't have a driver's license, I couldn't drive anymore. I got into like a state of depression for a long time. It still hurts. Talking to me about it still hurts. Mm-hmm. But, so I had to sell my everyday car, but my sports car is still in the garage. I don't have the heart to sell that because that thing was with me since my divorce back in the 90s, right? So I kept. But anyhow, yeah. So I went and continued to invest passively. However, it comes back to bite you when you haven't done your due diligence from day one. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple of situations where I've lent massive amount of money, right? And then another situation where not big amount, but it's substantial amount. And it came to a point where, I'm still waiting for funds to come back to me after many years. And the other situation is, I was getting interest payments monthly. Great, because I knew this person for years. I trusted them. I knew what they were all about, but still I didn't do the kind of due diligence I needed to do.
Right.
So this is a key, due diligence, make sure, get referrals, talk to people, talk to other investors, see how they feel about that particular person or that project, whatever. Yeah. And then, maybe I was a little cocky at the time. I don't know, right? But as you get older, I'm much older than you, but as you get older, you're still learning. You're still learning a lot.
Right. So Peter, let me ask you this question, because usually real estate is like this, right? You don't invest in the project, you invest in the people.
Exactly.
In the operator.
Exactly.
Now, you say you've known this guy for a long time. Obviously, we're not going to name drop in this podcast.
No, we're not going to name drop. No.
But you've known him for a while. Based on our conversation, you guys have done some business before, and it was all handled correctly. Yes. That's why you started lending more and more.
Yes.
So what changed?
What changed was the economy over the last couple of years, right? Through COVID, then interest rate changes, certain rule changes. All of a sudden, he couldn't pay interest anymore.
Right.
Interest was not coming in, and the interest was essential for me because that's part of my daily living expenses. Yeah.
Right.
And it really not only shocked me, but it really disappointed me that I'm still negotiating with him. When are you going to start paying interest again? The big question is, it's not the ROI. It's another ROI. It's not return on investment. It's return of investment. It's the capital that you put in that you got to ensure that this capital can come back no matter what. Right. So here's two instances here where one I've known for a long time is not giving me even my capital back. And the other one who I even know, well, I didn't know very well. I didn't do my due diligence on the other one, even with the smaller amount that I lend. That one is still in limbo. I've still, like emailing. And the thing is, like, sure, people say, go for litigation, do this. Look, I've been through a divorce. I've been through, other relationship breakdowns, with girlfriends and that sort of thing. And dealing with lawyers, I don't know. Like when I went through the divorce, I'm sure I bought him a couple of Mercedes at the time, right? Because of all the fees that he charged. That's what it seemed like. Because all right, whatever you have to pay, you have to pay. But man, you really got to be careful to not get into a situation where where you're going to be paying out, not only losing your funds, but paying a lawyer to do it. If you can avoid lawyers are a necessity.
But let's take a step back. Let's take a step back because we talk about what really changed was the interest rate, it was the economy, right? Like the entire real estate cycle shifted to different direction.
A
little bit. Some people will say it's expected, but during that period of time, you never knew when that's going to happen, right?
You never know what that's going to happen. Yeah, exactly. And plus, his project that he's using the funds into, that particular project was halted, right? So he was that project was also being funded from overseas, right? So he was waiting for overseas funds into this it's a huge project,
right?
And those funds didn't come, so it sort of did a domino effect. He didn't get the funds, he couldn't pay the interest then to other people here in Canada, and we're not getting our capital back.
Yeah, this is literally leverage on top of the leverage, and that's why the moment that one thing doesn't come in within the time frame that he's anticipating, you will make the whole thing crumble. But I want to ask you a question because you talk about due diligence, just literally a few minutes ago. Yeah. If you were to go through this whole process again, what kind of due diligence that you would do to ensure that this type of stuff doesn't actually happen to you?
Oh man, it'd be more of a background check. Absolutely. Background
on the project or on the person?
Both, right? Because you can do the project to see whether that's legitimate, and also on the person or the entity or the people involved in that. I mean, are they legitimate? What is their history? Who can you talk to? Other investors, for example, people. Like the real estate community, even though it seems large, it's really small.
It's very small, yeah.
It's very small, right? You don't have to talk to 200 people that one knows the other. So it's a matter of talking. See whether you can research the corporation. Who are the other people involved? You might know the one guy who's pitching this. What about the other people behind him, right? The other directors or whoever that corporation. It's a matter of just keep researching, keep digging. You could even hire a private investigator. I know a couple already. So I know a couple already that will either do it for me because I'm a friend of theirs, or I'll have to pay them a little bit. Oh, and not just the person, but okay, where is this project completed? In which market? Which country? Which province? Where is this? Which neighborhood? And what's the demographics there? What is the economy there? All these kind of things. So it's you really need to look from different facets that to ensure, because yes, you can have all the trust. You can be the most likable guy around, and you're the most fun guy around, and I think I know this person or that person. No, you don't. You got to do the due diligence. Yeah.
Here's the thing though, for the audience, the people that we're talking about right now is actually, they're very high profile. They have a lot of social media presence. So if obviously this type of situation when it happens, it's a little bit unfortunate, but also it's very challenging to prevent because they have a certain online authority out there already. So, and the part I really want to kind of go deep here is the person that you're collaborating, that you lend money over as a passive investor, he's done a few projects with you already. He has such a strong social media presence. He handled multiple projects already, right? And you made your money. So it is very difficult to redo that due diligence again with that specific person after a few years of working together. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out. So even though you can look back and feel like, I should have done more due diligence on him, but it's the trust that's being established is a little hard to break that trust again, rebuild it throughout that whole process. So I just want to point that out. But the second thing that you mentioned was very interesting is the project and the details where the location is going to be. Did you were you not aware that where the funds were going to be allocated to, or how
I knew
that whole process worked?
I knew where the funds were going, right? I knew where the funds were going. So it went to that project, but did those funds go elsewhere? Did it go elsewhere to fund something else?
Very good point. Yeah.
How do you know? For me, for example, the most risky way of lending is using promissory notes on one of those deals, right? And so there was collateral on there, but it wasn't registered collateral. Yeah. As an example, the collateral, let's say, was the borrower's house. Yeah.
Right.
So the borrower's house. So if there's any issues, you could always go. This is what I remember of the promissory note. The house is here. You can put a lien on it.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay, at the time, that sounds okay, great, great for that collateral. However, this wasn't registered. I didn't register any lien. I didn't do any great due diligence on this. Yet, how do I know that the same promissory note was given to 100 more people with the same house?
Exactly.
Right? That's why you have to go through the legal mode, make sure that the house is registered as a mortgage, basically, and that you have a mortgage on that house, that at least you have some legal direction toward to get your funds back.
For sure.
Okay, so you don't get your interest. Okay, I'll lose a little bit of interest. We've all lost money in real estate, all of us, right? So a little bit of interest, but I want my capital back, right? So that is imperative, definitely.
Yeah, you raised a very good point, which I think a lot of people, as a beginner investors, probably wouldn't think about, or anybody who's even in the industry for a while, is that sometimes when you give the money to another active investor, whether or not they are actually utilizing that capital correctly, sometimes it can be questionable, right? Because they can say, hey, I'm going to allocate this funds into this project. But then if there's no lien against that property, that asset, what they can also do is to approach to a different bank, get a refi, get a capital out, and then reallocate supposed to be your fund into another project, right? So there's many different gray areas that if things are not being very clear, people can actually do behind the scene, right? And the truth is, lending as a passive investor or investing as a passive investor, the hardest part is once the money is out of your account, you lose control right away.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through a little bit. If you were to do all the due diligence that you're supposed to do, at which part will stop you from moving forward to these type of investment projects?
What would put an obstacle in front of it if I don't get any good feedback in terms of the borrower himself?
Got it.
If there is some kind of defect or blemish on the integrity, that would be my first flag that goes up. Then from that point out, see how many other flags I can collect, right? And that's another thing. A lot of these investments, they're looking for funding in a short time space. By this date, by next week, end of March, I need $100,000. So what are you going to do? You're going to spend all your time doing the research and maybe everything looks good. However, you neglected your business. You neglected your family. You didn't go to the beach. You didn't go ride your bike, right? You're focused on this. You're nervous because, this is such a great deal. And then, I didn't see too much of a blemish on this particular person or deal. I'll just go that. You know how many times I ran to the bank just to meet a deadline? Back in the day, I said, I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
It's my timeline, right? I'll do whatever it takes, however long a lawyer or whomever referral comes back to me. If I don't have that information, okay, just let it slide. There's going to be always another deal down the road.
100%.
But to be put under a time pressure, no, I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
And also, I think depending on the stage of life that we're in, our approach will also be different, right? Because I think, especially for your age, right, your current health condition, you will always, now the protecting that fund is actually way more important than maximizing the return of the investment.
Yeah, like when you're in your teens, 20s, especially everyone today is like your generation, they're all proficient on the computer and you can do all kinds of things quickly. Yeah, you might be able to do things quickly, get things done quick, in a really relatively short period of time. But is it enough? Like, is it really enough that you've done? There's also the mindset part of it too, where, this is a great deal. I like that guy. I've got the funds, whether it be cash or in a line of credit or a HELOC, or I'll ask my uncle, all right, I need $100,000. Come on, I want to get into this deal. You really need to spend the time to make sure that you're doing the right thing, making the right decision, just to protect yourself. But there's always a risk. And then there's a lot of other investors who take the courses. They go to meetups, networking. Oh, I love it too. But they don't do anything because they're afraid to put their toe in the water and put that deposit down.
Yeah.
Right. And then the what ifs happen. Yeah. So you got to take the risk. You take the risk. Yeah. But to do the risk, jump into the pool. First thing you got to do, well, do I know how to swim? Yeah. Is there a rock there? Is that 2 feet or is that 20 feet? Well, yeah, there's my due diligence. I'm going to take a look, see if it's safe to do so. So you do as much as you can, right? You really have to think this through. And if you have access to coaches and mentors and people who've already done this, you can ask people questions. And you don't always have to pay for these answers, right? Your network expands. You can get a lot of good answers, good referrals, and then it's up to you to make the decision. So the more you exercise your risk muscle, that muscle grows to be stronger, and therefore you could take on bigger and more risky projects, I guess.
So now here's another very realistic question. After going through what you've been through, your risk assessment ability has probably grown or developed so much at this point. Is that going to prevent you from being a passive investor moving forward? Or let's say you still feel comfortable as long as this fits into your criteria?
Yeah, I'm not discounting passive investing at all, right? Passive investing, it really depends, but I'm more focused on being an active investor. I want control of the project. I want control. I mean, even you mentioned that to me in one of our talks, and I said absolutely that is a criteria. Yeah. It's probably number one on the list. You and Warren Buffett, quotes, are fighting for number one on the list. So. To protect, absolute. You got to protect those assets, and what Mr. Wonderful said too. You could send out the soldiers, but make sure that they're well protected and well armed. That you not only get what you're expecting, but you get your capital back at some point. Yeah, absolutely. I'm still open to passive investing. Sure.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because these are all really good points. And I feel like a lot of people who are just getting into real estate, a lot of times they will do one of the two things. They will try to figure out how to really get into real estate as an active investors. figure out how to kind of go through that whole project on their own, while start maybe leveraging a bit of their contacts to raise a little bit more capital. That seems to be a very common way to do it. But also, when someone like you, who was already running a successful business, trying to get into real estate, you're trying to like really evaluate where the time should be spent. But then it also end up putting you in a position where you trust people a little bit too much, or you trust that, you know, the project will just go, you know, smoothly without running into any problems. And throughout the past several years, that's how you started learning, okay, there's also a very huge risk component that you didn't or you were not aware being a passive investor. And it kind of pushed you right back into an active role.
Yeah. That and the influence also where the bulk of my liquid funds, it's in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
Right? It's in somebody else's hands now. So, okay, I'll put a fence around my funds right now that I do have liquid. I put a fence around it now, and you know, make sure it's got a gate on it with a nice lock. And then when there's time for it to, you know, allocate funds to somebody else's project, yeah, it'll come about. Okay. But what's also important is to create new funds. You want to create new funds that you are under control, that you have control over, I should say. Yeah, so the active part is good. Oh, and then where I used to be active too, you know, like you know, going into projects. I love demo day, you know, but because of the stroke, it's risky to climb ladders. It's you know, I still, you know, I take care of the landscaping in my own house. I do that, most of it, just, you know, just keep exercise and do, you know, get fresh air and all that stuff. But going into a house and you know, seeing the bare walls, no drywall, and then you could see with the plumbing and the electrical and all this stuff, and that's amazing. You know, one of these days, I just love to renovate my house, you know, take the roof off it, put another story on the thing. I'm waiting for that day. I just want to get into it. Right. But that's down the road a little bit. Sounds and active is very, 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 very interesting.
Yeah. For the listening though, would you say that you should always start it off as an active investor, or would you say maybe, because here's the thing, what is the right ratio between being an active versus being a passive if you have some decent size of capital that you can work with?
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you have capital, right, and you want to put it to work, start off being passive if you have capital.
Okay, so you still believe that would be the right route?
That would be the right route, right? Because what are you going to do? Put this capital in a GIC? You're going to put it in an RSP? Like, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. You could buy a Ferrari with it, but, you know, depends. Is that going to appreciate or not? You don't know. Plus all the maintenance on it, it's going to suck you dry. Anyways, on the other side, you know, yeah, because to be passive, maybe you already have a job or a career. You know, maybe you are a dentist, a doctor, and you have all this excess funds and you don't have time to go knock a wall down. You don't want to knock a wall down. Mm-hmm. So you put it to where you think that those funds could make money for you, right? Put them in an active process somewhere. Whereas some other people, you know, like you and your gang, you know, not gang, you and your team, right? I mean, you guys just love getting into houses and knocking things down and reconfiguring a house and make it look new, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you have that drive to do it, and there are other people also, so they want to get in there with a sledgehammer and see if they can carry out their vision to get that project done. Absolutely. So if you have some funds, even if you don't have funds, you could still do that. You could still go out there with leveraged money and that sort of thing.
I do want to throw in an example and see how you respond to this, because again, like when you going through what you're currently going through, not a lot of people are actually being through this whole process, right? Investing in very reputable investors, and then it was successful for multiple times, and then this time it was completely opposite. And then all you're hoping to do right now is to figure out a way to regain that control over your funds that's being invested into a different project. And we don't know when that's going to happen, but let's say if anybody is about to go through the whole process of lending, right? Like you started going through back in like 2016. Two different options. One is to start investing into other reputable investors, and yes, do all the due diligence that they needed to do on the person and the project, versus just investing in something that doesn't require a lot of headache. For example, buying it maybe closer to turnkey condition, closer to a retail price, without having to go through the permitting process, flipping project, right, and all that stuff. Just buying something easy to manage and then hand it over to the property manager for to kind of hand off the operation. Which route would you say is still better for you?
If, like your second scenario there, yeah, if that turnkey project, with all the numbers that you have gathered, what you know, not just the numbers, but the economics of the area, if the cash flow, right? Forget about the appreciation. Appreciation to me is like icing on the cake, right? You buy cake, it's icing on it, beautiful.
Yeah, bonus.
Right? Bonus. And that's where I got burned also there, right? I went against my own rule and I got burned and say, okay, this is advice for others. Appreciation is the icing on the cake. However, if you have a turnkey property brought to you, and you've done your due diligence of everything, not just the property, the numbers, the area, the property manager, make sure you got, the right lawyer, you have the right team in that area. The house doesn't have to be next door. It could be in another country, another province. If all that works and your numbers, you've gone through it 100 times, you've gone through to your coach or who you trust to give you advice, and they've also qualified it, and you come down to a cash flow that you could live with and it's good enough for you, do that. Right? Go for it. Absolutely go for it. That would be for the person that has the funds that can do it. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, right, what you described there is also valid. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the situation.
The reason why I'm asking this question, just so everybody knows, is someone like you who's not getting or having a bit of bad taste in being a passive role, right? You still believe that being a passive investing can still be very beneficial to a lot of other investors. That's what I really, admire, because even though you're going through bad experience, but you're not using this as a few, cases to really saying that, hey, this idea, this whole concept is no longer working, right? You need to definitely always put yourself into an active position. So I really appreciate that, because I can see that you try very hard to pull yourself out of that situation and look at things in a very unbiased way, right? And I really appreciate that you're also on this podcast sharing about your experience, and essentially let people know what kind of due diligence that we all need to go through, as much as you trust the person or the project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like any kind of advice like that, I'm open to anybody who wants to get in touch with me and talk about it, and I'm sure they can get in touch with you too. But it's many years. See, the thing is, you take the risk. Something happens, positive or negative, right? Like even going through a divorce, having having a stroke and other medical situations over life, and girlfriends that you lost and things like this. Okay, you're down for a little bit, but you always get up. Always get up. You never stay down. Never be cynical, right? Look, my ex-wife, I don't hate her. Right? Like some guys, the girlfriend, okay, whatever, you don't have to hate her. I mean, that's them. You bless their heart. Okay, go for it. But the thing is, You can't let this negativity come in and hurt your heart. You can't let that. Then you become cynical and you become depressed. And then you end up in the hospital and then you got, 10 different medications that you're taking. No, no, no. Be cool about it. Just do the right things. You just do the right things. There's a lot of advice out there. And from, you and your team, excellent advice and coaching, mentorship. I love what you guys do. It's really eye-opening. And I say, man, I wish I was 20 again. I know you're not 20, but I wish I was 20 so I could grow into what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And when I was 20, I had no clue about stuff that you're doing at that time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
hey, Peter, if anybody wants to get to know you a little bit more or get to know your situation a little bit more so that they can kind of understand what type of due diligence that they need to be doing, what is the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, they could go to my Facebook, Instagram, DM me in some way, right?
So we'll put the link in.
Put the link. Yeah, put the links in, and they could reach out to me. So I've got my personal Facebook, and then I got my corporate Facebook too, also on the Instagram.
Awesome.
No, I think, look, whatever I've gone through, I've learned a lot, and I'm still standing. Right, I'm still standing, and I'm not cynical at all, and I appreciate, go-getters like you, intelligent bunch of guys, the you and your team, and I go, wow, man, I really enjoy watching what you guys are doing, and you guys bring a lot of value to not only the people who are part of your organization, but the new people that are looking for something great. Yeah. They should be looking to you.
Really appreciate it. Honestly, this is what make the community great, right? Because it's also someone who's willing to share a lot of experience. We can all learn from each other. Yeah. And that's why we really enjoy the current platform that we're building at this moment, and we'll continue to make it better. One last thing before we end this podcast. When you talk about the mindset, you're going through some of the challenges, and you also went through the health situation, your stroke back in 2016. What kept you going, right? If you were to give anybody an advice to, control your mind, control your body, what would be the best advice that you can provide to people who are going through some challenges?
Whatever you do, right? Follow your heart, your desire, what you want to do. Don't let other people tell you what you should be doing. If you want to be, I don't know, if you want to be a renovator because you like to swing the hammer, you like to see what you create, do it. If you're in your heart, you want to be a doctor, do it, right? Whatever's in your heart, your desire dictates where you should be going in life. Some people don't know what that desire is. The thing is, listen to your thoughts. Listen to your thoughts. Like, what are you thinking about most that you really want to do? And follow that, get information from all different sources and see what you could come up with, especially if you're a young person. When I was in high school, I had an idea, but then I deviated because why? My father told me, I want you to go to medical school. I don't even like cutting up a frog. You want me to go to medical school? So I went to U of T, right? To get into, the basic sciences and work my way up. In the second year, I said, forget that. I'm not doing it. Even though I was accepted at U of T engineering, right? Mechanical engineering. I said, great. But no, I deviated. And then from that point, it's a sore spot with me, even from back then. But mind you, everything else that went from that point on to today was a vast learning experience. Like, wow. I mean, I've seen so much. I've seen the world. I've done so much. With being a doctor, okay, yeah, sure, doctor, you have a Ferrari in the garage, but it might not have fulfilled your soul. The thing is to what's in your soul, what's your desire, where do you want to go with your life? and that's the decision. You know, where you are today is a result of all your decisions. So decide well at the beginning, as best you can, and just, you know, get the help and support, you know, and network and talk to whomever, right, that you look up to.
Yeah. So basically try to follow your desire, follow your heart to do things that you're a little bit more passionate about, right?
Yes.
Explore that, and then try to expose yourself to many different other information, context, and see if that's the right route for you. And
Exactly.
once you identify that, just keep pushing forward, because that's
exactly. Like who was it? Like Richard Branson, or was it Grant Cardone? One of those guys, you know, said, if you follow that desire and you do the thing that you love to do, then whatever hardship comes your way, you'll be able to handle it easier. But if you're doing a job that you hate and some hardship comes, you'll just quit. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. Right.
Yeah,
but if you do something that you love and enjoy, then you could mitigate those low points. And I said, that is great advice. Right.
That is amazing.
I need a time machine. I got to go back to when I'm 20.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. This is super helpful. And then I think it will give a lot of people the insights of being a passive investor.
Great. I really appreciate the opportunity, Ping. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and I always learn something new from you, man. Perfect.
Likewise.
All the best to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thanks.